He knocked like a man who had run out of time. Not careful. Not courteous. 3 hard blows that struck the door with the sound of panic more than manners. Eliza's heart seized, the spoon frozen halfway to her mouth. The stew before her barely breathed steam, thin and tired, yet her pulse thundered as if it were boiling over. No one came to her cabin. Not in winter. Not on this lonely ridge. And never after dark. She stood very still and listened. The wind leaned hard against the logs. Snow scraped and hissed across the roof like something alive, searching for a way in. Then the knock came again. Softer now. Hesitant. Almost pleading. Eliza reached for her father's old rifle, fingers stiff with cold and doubt. She crossed the small room, boots quiet on the floorboards, and leaned toward the door. Through the frost-clouded glass she saw a shape, tall and bent beneath the storm. A man. A cowboy by the cut of him, shoulders bowed, coat soaked black with wet snow. In his arms he held a child, small and unmoving. Behind them stood 2 horses, heads hanging low, sides shuddering, close to giving out altogether. The boy's lips were blue. Eliza's grip tightened on the rifle. The last strangers who had come here had laughed at her patched dress and her bare shelves. They had taken her food, her warmth, and left her with nothing but shame and the echo of their voices fading down the trail. Her father's voice rose in her memory then, steady as the axe he once swung. Hospitality ain't optional in a storm. Eliza set the rifle down. She opened the door. Snow surged inside like a living thing, biting her ankles, stealing her breath. The man staggered forward, relief cracking through his exhaustion as he crossed the threshold. "Ma'am," he said. Just that one word. Dry, broken, like it had traveled a long way to reach her. Inside, Eliza said quickly. "By the fire." They came in dragging the storm with them. When she slammed the door shut, the howl outside dulled to a distant roar, like a beast locked out. Silence fell heavy between them. The cowboy dropped to his knees by the hearth without being told. Eliza grabbed her only spare quilt, the one her mother had stitched before dying, and wrapped it tight around the boy. He couldn't have been more than 8. His clothes were good but worn thin, the kind meant to last. His hands were ice. "How long you been riding?" she asked, already filling the kettle. "Too long," the man said. His voice broke on the words. She poured weak coffee, ladled stew into 2 chipped bowls. The man barely touched his food. He watched his son instead, eyes sharp with a fear that refused to loosen its grip. When the boy finally stirred, his lashes fluttered and his eyes opened slow. Blue. Clear. Alive. "Thank you, miss," the child whispered. Something inside Eliza cracked open. Night deepened. The storm raged on. Eliza fed the fire and tried not to notice the way the man watched her, not with threat, but with a quiet disbelief, as if kindness itself had surprised him. The boy fell asleep wrapped in her mother's quilt. The cowboy stood at the window, staring out into the white nothing beyond the glass. They aren't just lost, Eliza realized. They're running. She woke before dawn to find him already awake, seated near the dying fire, guarding his sleeping son like a treasure. Pale light crept through the shutters. "Morning," she said softly. He nodded. No words. Eliza mixed the last of her flour into dough, stretching it thin for biscuits. The jar of preserved plum jam was nearly empty. The coffee grounds barely covered the bottom of the tin. The cowboy stood and helped without asking. His hands were steady. Capable. When the boy woke, he pushed himself upright slowly. "Where are we?" "Safe," the man said. "For now." "Might I have a biscuit, miss?" the boy asked, polite in a way that didn't match the trail. "All you want," Eliza said. As they ate, she noticed things. The horses outside were fine stock beneath the grime. The man's coat was worn thin, but every stitch was precise. The boy's hands were clean. Soft. These were not ordinary drifters. "How far were you headed?" she asked. "Far enough," the man said. She glanced toward the window. "Storm's not done. Trails won't clear for days." He stiffened. "We can't stay." "You can't ride," she said. "Your horses are spent." Your boy nearly froze. Pride roared behind his eyes. Finally, he let out a breath. 3 days. 3 days, Eliza agreed. The boy smiled. Small. Careful. "I'm Samuel. This is my pa. Daniel," the man added. "Eliza." They shook hands across the rough table. His grip was calloused, but gentle. That day Daniel split wood with a steady rhythm Eliza hadn't heard since her father died. Each strike echoed through her bones. Samuel darted through the yard laughing, gathering eggs with careful hands. That evening Daniel sat across from her at the table. "Your father raised you right." "He raised me alone," Eliza said. "Mama died early." Daniel nodded. "So did Samuel's." The words settled between them, cold and heavy. Later, when she hung his coat to dry, something slipped from the pocket. A gold pocket watch. Heavy. Engraved. Not the kind a drifter owned. Eliza stared at it, heart thudding, then slipped it back without a word. The third morning broke clear and sharp. The trail down the mountain glimmered with promise. "Can't we stay longer, Pa?" Samuel pleaded. "So do I, son," Daniel said softly. Eliza turned away. "Your horse threw a shoe," she said suddenly. Daniel checked. "One more day." Samuel whooped. Eliza smiled to herself. Just one more day, she told herself, not yet knowing how much that lie would cost her, or save her. Morning settled gentle over the ridge. Eliza watched Daniel work. He moved like a man used to fixing what was broken. The sagging barn door hung straight again. The loose fence stood firm. Each repair felt like a promise she hadn't asked for. Inside, the cabin felt warmer. Voices filled spaces once held only by echoes. Eliza hadn't realized how heavy the silence had been until it was gone. That night, hooves sounded outside. Torchlight flickered. Eliza's heart leapt. Daniel was already at the door. "Get inside," he said quietly. 3 riders entered the yard. One sat tall, fine wool coat, sharp smile. "Well now," he called. "Didn't expect company." "You have no business here, Lucas," Eliza said. Lucas tipped his hat. His eyes slid to Daniel, then to Samuel. "And who's this?" "Guests. Careful who you take in." Daniel didn't move. Lucas's horse shifted uneasily. "Railroad's coming through," Lucas said. "Your land's in the way." "Not for sale." Daniel stepped forward just enough. "That's enough." Lucas laughed, hollow. "Check his bags." "Get off my land," Eliza snapped. Lucas's smile thinned. "Think on my offer." They rode off, leaving the yard torn and quiet. That night Eliza couldn't sleep. "Tell me the truth," she said. "I'm trying to do right," Daniel replied. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." The words cut deep. "Then leave," she said. Before dawn she heard them packing. She watched unseen as Samuel sobbed on the porch. "We can't stay," Daniel said gently. Hoofs faded. Eliza slid down the wall and wept. Hours later, old Jonah arrived. "That was Daniel Harrington," he said. "Railroad heir. Richest family in 3 territories." The truth struck hard. "Lucas plans to expose him tonight." Eliza grabbed her coat and ran. The ride down the mountain was brutal, but she didn't stop. The town square blazed with lantern light. "There he is," Lucas shouted. Eliza rode straight in and stood between them. "He is a good man." "He lied." "He worked," she said. Daniel stepped forward. "I hid my name, not my hands." Lucas sneered. "Banknotes do." Daniel pulled a paper free. "Already paid." Silence fell. Samuel ran forward. "Can we go home now?" "Yes," Eliza said softly. "Let's go home." The ride back up the mountain felt different from the one that had brought them down. Not hurried. Not desperate. Heavy instead, weighted with words left unsaid. Eliza rode beside Daniel in silence while Samuel shifted between them when his legs tired, glancing from one adult to the other as if afraid one of them might vanish if he looked away too long. Clouds gathered low and thick as they climbed, snow threatening again, the mountain reminding them it never gave anything easily. When the cabin finally came into view, smoke long gone from the chimney, Eliza's chest tightened. The place looked smaller somehow, quieter, like it had been holding its breath. Daniel dismounted first and lifted Samuel down, setting him gently on the porch. "Go inside," he said. "Get warm." Samuel obeyed, but not before grabbing Eliza's hand for a brief second, just long enough to remind her why she had ridden so hard. "You didn't have to come," Daniel said. "Yes," she replied. "I did." The wind moved between them, carrying pine and cold. "I should have told you," Daniel said. "Who I was." "You wanted one place," Eliza answered, "where your name didn't come first." Relief flickered across his face, followed by fear. "I won't stay if you don't want us. I've already taken enough." She looked at the cabin, at the fence he had straightened, the woodpile stacked high. His marks were everywhere. "I sent you away because I was scared," she said. "Not of you. Of what I felt." Daniel's breath caught. They went inside together. Warmth returned quickly. Samuel fell asleep by the hearth as if he had never left. Eliza watched him a long moment before turning away. Sleep came in fragments that night. The fire popped. Wind pressed against the logs. "You regret it?" she asked suddenly. "No," Daniel said without hesitation. "Not for a second." Silence stretched. "I don't know how to stay halfway," he added. "If we stay, it's all the way." "So do I," Eliza said. Morning came pale and cold. Snow dusted the world clean again. Daniel was already outside checking the horses. Samuel followed, bundled and bright. They worked without many words. Eliza patched clothes. Daniel repaired the roof where ice had split the shingles. Samuel helped everywhere and nowhere at once. By evening the cabin felt alive again. Daniel sat at the table, hands folded. "There's more you should know." "I'm listening." "My family won't stop," he said. "They'll send men. Papers. Pressure." Eliza met his gaze. "This land is mine. I won't let them take it." The words weren't a promise. They were a vow. That night Samuel woke crying. Daniel soothed him, voice low and steady. Eliza watched from the doorway, something warm and aching blooming in her chest. Days passed. Winter loosened its grip, not gone, just gentler. They fell into a rhythm that felt earned. Shared meals. Shared work. Shared quiet. Samuel stopped calling her Miss and Ma'am altogether. One evening Eliza found the gold pocket watch again. She held it longer this time. "Why keep it?" she asked later. "It reminds me what I walked away from," Daniel said. "And why?" "You don't have to prove anything here." He looked at her like that mattered more than she knew. They stood together beneath a sky scattered with stars. "I don't know what tomorrow brings," Daniel said. Eliza slipped her hand into his. "Neither do I." For the first time in a long while, the unknown didn't feel like something to fear. Spring tried to arrive. Winter argued back. Snow thinned in patches, brown earth showing through. Water ran cold and fast down the slopes. Eliza welcomed the sound. Change, even slow, mattered. Samuel thrived. His cough faded. Color returned to his cheeks. He laughed more than he slept and slept more than he cried. Eliza watched Daniel and his son bent close over small tasks, heads touching. She had never known that kind of steadiness. One afternoon a rider appeared on the trail below. Eliza saw him first. City coat. Fresh horse. Papers in a leather satchel. "They found us," Daniel said quietly. The man dismounted without greeting. "Daniel Harrington. By authority of the family trust." "This is my land," Eliza said. "Temporary arrangements don't change blood," the man replied. "You have until summer." He rode away, leaving threat behind him like a shadow. That night Daniel barely ate. "Then what happens to us?" Eliza asked. "That depends on what you want." "I want this," she said. "I want you both. You're the reason." "I found him again," Daniel replied. Samuel brought in wildflowers that evening. "For Ma," he said shyly. Eliza froze. Daniel did too. "It's perfect," she whispered, pulling the boy into her arms. Later Daniel stood watching the sunset. He chose that name on his own. "I know. I want to do this right," he said. "Then don't run." "I won't." Spring finally pushed through in earnest. Grass returned. Birds called. The mountain breathed easier. Then Lucas came back. He didn't come alone. "Think carefully," Lucas warned. "They won't destroy what you built," Eliza said that night. "Not without a fight." The meeting came faster than comfort allowed. The mountain felt restless. "This land isn't empty," Eliza said in the square. "It holds my home." "Because this," Daniel said, voice steady, "is the first place my son has slept without fear." Lucas faltered. Papers changed hands. The railroad man nodded. "This is valid." "You didn't have to," Eliza said later. "I wanted to," Daniel replied. "For us." At the cabin Samuel ran ahead laughing. Daniel joined Eliza on the porch. "I stopped running," he said. That night he held out a worn gold ring. "I won't promise ease," he said. "But this will always be home." Eliza placed her father's pocket watch into Samuel's hands. "Yes," she said softly. Spring arrived fully a week later. They married quietly, the mountain and sky as witness. Life settled. A second room. A proper barn. Fences that would last. "You ever regret it?" Eliza asked. "Best trade I ever made." She rested a hand on her belly, a secret growing. The future felt close now. The mountain held them. And for the first time, Eliza knew this peace wasn't borrowed. It was earned. Summer came in quietly, without announcement. It settled over the ridge the way comfort does, slow and sure, until one day Eliza realized she no longer woke braced for loneliness. She woke to Daniel's axe striking wood in a steady rhythm and Samuel humming off-key while scattering grain for the chickens. The cabin that had once echoed with her own footsteps now breathed with life. Smoke curled steady from the chimney. Doors opened without hesitation. Home had learned their names. Eliza moved carefully now. Not weak, just aware. One hand often rested on her belly, feeling the quiet promise growing there. Daniel noticed everything. He lifted heavy things before she reached them, opened doors without comment, watched her with an awe that still caught him off guard. Samuel noticed too. "Pa," he whispered one evening while fireflies drifted through the meadow. "The baby gonna sleep by the fire like I did?" Daniel smiled. "If they want to." Satisfied, Samuel leaned against Eliza's side, fitting there like he always had. The mountain bloomed. Wild roses climbed the ridge in pink waves. Bees hummed. The creek ran clear and calm. The railroad still carved its path through the valley far below, but it never touched their land. Lucas did not return. Sometimes Eliza thought about him, about how fear could dress itself up as power in certain men. Then she watched Daniel bent over a fence post, patient and steady, and the thought faded. One afternoon a letter arrived, carried by a boy from town who wouldn't meet Daniel's eyes. Daniel read it once, folded it carefully, and placed it in the fire. "Family?" Eliza asked. "Yes. Anything we need to worry about?" "No," he said, and this time he meant it. They stood together as the paper curled into ash, the past burning away without drama. That evening, after Samuel fell asleep clutching the pocket watch Eliza had given him, Daniel and Eliza sat side by side in the doorway. The sky burned orange and gold. "I almost didn't open the door that night," Eliza said quietly. "I know," Daniel replied. "I was tired. Angry at the cold. Angry at being alone. I told myself no one ever came to help me. Why should I help anyone else?" Daniel took her hand. "But you did." She nodded. Everything had changed. Daniel leaned his forehead against hers. "Best mistake I ever made. Getting lost on that mountain." "It wasn't a mistake," Eliza said. "It was mercy." They stayed until the stars appeared one by one. The same sky that had once felt endless and uncaring now felt like a roof over something sacred. Late August brought heat and fullness. The garden overflowed. Samuel grew taller, louder, stronger. He called Eliza Ma without thinking now, the word settling into his mouth like it had always lived there. One morning he burst into the cabin breathless. "Ma, Pa, come see." They followed him to the ridge where the wild roses grew thickest. Samuel picked one carefully and tucked it behind Eliza's ear. "For the prettiest Ma on the mountain," he said solemnly. Eliza laughed, tears blurring her sight. Daniel wrapped his arms around both of them and held tight. That night, after Samuel slept, Eliza and Daniel sat on the porch again. Fireflies drifted like sparks refusing to die. "You ever miss it?" Eliza asked. "The money. The ease." Daniel was quiet a long moment. "I don't miss being surrounded by people who didn't know me," he said. "I don't miss teaching my son that worth comes from a name instead of a choice." He looked at her. "I didn't give anything up. I traded it." "For something real," Eliza said. "For something real," he agreed. The baby kicked beneath her hand, strong and certain. Daniel felt it and laughed softly, eyes shining. Winter would come again. Storms would return. The mountain would test them the way it always did. But Eliza no longer feared the knocking of the wind. She knew what lived inside her walls now. Love earned. Trust chosen. A family built not from wealth, but from one night of mercy and the courage to keep saying yes afterward. She had opened her door to strangers in a storm. They had walked in and never truly left. On that ridge, far from power and gold, a poor young woman found the richest life she could imagine. Summer faded the way it had arrived, quietly and without ceremony. Heat softened, shadows lengthened, and the mountain exhaled as if preparing itself once more. Eliza felt the shift in her bones before she saw it in the trees. Leaves dulled. Mornings carried a bite again. Change was never sudden here. It came honest. Eliza woke each day to the sound of Daniel splitting wood and Samuel humming while feeding the chickens. The cabin that had once echoed with her loneliness now answered with life. Smoke curled steady from the chimney. Footsteps crossed the floor without pause. The walls held warmth deeper than fire. She moved slower now. Not fragile. Aware. One hand rested often on her belly, feeling the quiet promise growing there. Daniel noticed everything. He lifted heavy loads without a word. He stood between her and the wind without thinking. He watched her like the world had handed him something sacred and fragile all at once. Samuel noticed too. One night, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies drift low over the meadow, he leaned close to Daniel. "Pa," he whispered, "the baby gonna sleep by the fire like I did?" Daniel smiled, eyes soft. "If they want to." Samuel nodded, satisfied, then leaned against Eliza's side, fitting there like it had always been meant to be so. The mountain bloomed even as summer waned. Wild roses climbed the ridge in soft pink waves. Bees hummed lazily. The creek ran clear and sure. Far below, the railroad continued its path through the valley, iron and smoke cutting lines through the land, but it never touched their ridge. Lucas did not return. Sometimes Eliza thought of him anyway. Of the way fear could disguise itself as authority. Then she watched Daniel bent over a fence post, patient and steady, and the thought slipped away like mist. One afternoon a letter came, delivered by a boy from town who kept his eyes on the ground. Daniel read it once, carefully, then folded it and placed it in the fire. "Family?" Eliza asked. "Yes. Anything we need to worry about?" "No," he said, and for the first time there was no hesitation behind the word. They stood together and watched the paper curl into ash. The past burned quietly, without spectacle. That evening, after Samuel fell asleep clutching the pocket watch Eliza had given him, Daniel and Eliza sat side by side in the doorway. The sky burned orange and gold beyond the ridge. "You know," Eliza said softly, "I almost didn't open the door that night." Daniel turned toward her. "I know. I was tired," she went on. "Angry at the cold. Angry at being alone. I told myself no one ever came to help me. Why should I help anyone else?" Daniel took her hand, warm and sure. "But you did." She nodded. And everything had changed. Daniel leaned his forehead against hers. "Best mistake I ever made. Getting lost on that mountain." "It wasn't a mistake," Eliza said. "It was mercy." They stayed there until the stars came out one by one. The same sky that had once felt endless and uncaring now felt like a roof over something sacred. Late August brought fullness. The garden overflowed. Samuel grew taller, stronger, louder. He called Eliza Ma without thinking now, the word settling into his mouth like it had always belonged there. One morning he burst into the cabin, breathless. "Ma, Pa, come see." They followed him up the path to the ridge where the wild roses grew thickest. Samuel picked one carefully and tucked it behind Eliza's ear. "For the prettiest Ma on the mountain," he said, solemn as a vow. Eliza laughed, tears blurring her vision. Daniel wrapped his arms around both of them and held tight. That night, after Samuel slept, Eliza and Daniel sat on the porch again. Fireflies drifted through the meadow like sparks refusing to die. "You ever miss it?" Eliza asked. "The old life. The money. The ease." Daniel was quiet a long moment. "I don't miss being surrounded by people who didn't know me," he said finally. "I don't miss teaching my son that worth comes from a name instead of a choice." He turned to her. "I didn't give anything up. I traded it. For something real," Eliza said. "For something real," he agreed. The baby kicked beneath her hand, strong and certain. Daniel felt it and laughed softly, eyes shining. Autumn deepened. The air sharpened. The mountain prepared itself again. Eliza no longer feared the sound of the wind at night. She knew what lived inside her walls now. Love earned. Trust chosen. A family built not from wealth, but from one night of mercy and the courage to keep saying yes after. She had opened her door to strangers in a storm. They had walked in and never truly left. And on that ridge, far from power and gold, a young woman who once believed survival was all she could hope for found the richest life she could imagine.